And a very good Monday morning. Welcome into 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel. You can also listen on PGA Tour Radio. It's Channel 92 on Sirius XM. Great to have you with us. I am Gary Williams. This program is brought to you by Century Insurance. It always is right by you. They invest in the great things in the game of golf, not only their relationship with the First Tee, but also the United States Golf Association and that first event of the calendar year on the PGA Tour. Golf Pride. All players, every level, from the elite down to the recreational level, nobody is trusted more in terms of grips than Golf Pride. And of course, Peter Millar, everything that I've worn for the last 15 years, they've been refining performance, style, and luxury for more than 2 decades. And of course, Pinehurst, the cradle of American golf, they've got some news today. You're going to hear from the president of Pinehurst coming up in less than 15 minutes, Tom Pashley. He's going to join me. Every day is a good day to be at Pinehurst, and they've got news today that's only going to make them bigger and more attractive for every golfer of every level to go and spend some time at Pinehurst. All right, we got a lot to get to because I mentioned Tom Pashley. We're also going to be joined by Rob Collins. Rob and his partner Tad King are 2 of the most provocative golf course designers, not only in this country, but really anywhere in the world. Some of their work is lauded not only for their flair, but their imagination, their vision. Where one of those places is in a very modest little community in Nebraska, which has become kind of golf's second holy land. Well, that story about that place is going to be told in detail tonight in a beautiful documentary. It's called Landman. Well, Rob's going to join us, so I'm looking forward to that conversation, not only about the documentary, but about the journey to building this golf course on an extraordinary piece of land right on the border of Iowa and Nebraska. So this show is going to be a lot about design, not only what we have currently, but maybe what we're going to have soon enough in the near future. Well, the future is now for Justin Thomas. The future was now for him 10 years ago, but it had been a little while. So let's begin with the RBC Heritage, which has become not only a signature series event, it's been a staple on the PGA Tour for almost 5 decades now, and he wins in a playoff over Andrew Novak. He makes birdie on the first playoff hole, and he wins that golf tournament and wins for the first time since May of 2022, which was his PGA Championship win at Southern Hills. Daniel Berger, a final round of 65. He vaults up into a tie for third for Mackenzie Hughes. Mackenzie, that was a well-needed top 5 because it launches him all the way from 97th in the FedEx Cup standings all the way up to 41st. You see the name Brian Harman. He wins a couple of weeks ago at the Valero Texas Open. He now adds a tie for third. He is well positioned in the FedEx Cup standings, as is Maverick McNeely, who was a top 10 player in the world to start the week, and you can value the world rankings any way you want. Bottom line is he's having a great year. He touched the lead on a Sunday, gave a couple shots back, but he finishes at 14 under par. And then Tommy Fleetwood, he was positioned, and it didn't happen. It seems like he's been knocking on the door here for about 5 years to win on the PGA Tour. Scotty Scheffler made double bogey on the par 5 15th. He slides back to a tie for 8th, which is about as bad as he could do. Russell Henley, another good week for him. Russell Henley, you look at that first page. By the way, Siwoo Kim was your 54-hole leader. There was a 2-shot swing late on Saturday. He bogeyed 18. Justin Thomas made birdie on 18. And whatever you value momentum going from one day to the next, all I know is that Justin Thomas made a putt that would have gone into a shot glass or a thimble late on Saturday. He did the same thing in the playoff on Sunday. You know, you look at careers and you look at guys who have really productive careers, and someone like Andrew Novak is a perfect example of somebody who is building. He's now in his 4th season on the PGA Tour, and Andrew Novak has made in excess of $4 million already this year. The most he's made in a season in his career was last year when he made $2.5 million. He has gotten very, very close. He finished 2nd at Bermuda last November. He's now got another 2nd this year. He's 15th, as I mentioned, in the FedEx Cup standings. It's a breakthrough season. It's a breakthrough time for him in his career. And top 10s and top 5s are big-time progress for him. For someone like Justin Thomas, he's measured differently. And that's why I always tell people, especially young people, as we embark on another season of the Underrated Tour, Steph Curry's Underrated Tour, and I'm looking forward to being around that, being a part of it, beginning in late May outside of London and all the way through to the Curry Cup outside of New York City in September. And you know what I impart upon those juniors? And it's my modest advice that the most important skill for all the advanced metrics that exist in the game of golf today, the most refined skill you can have, because it's also the most elusive skill that you can capture, not on an every once a month kind of basis, maybe twice a year kind of basis. And if you do that twice a year for well over a decade, you'll be a member of the World Golf Hall of Fame if you do that on the PGA Tour. Justin Thomas has now won for the 16th time. And to consider the company that he now keeps, since 1960, here are the men with 16 wins before turning 32, which also was matched by at least multiple majors, at least 2 major championships. 16-2 is the benchmark. Palmer, Nicklaus, Johnny Miller, Tiger Woods, Tom Watson, Rory McIlroy, and now Justin Thomas. It's the skill of winning, and it's one, like I said, that is the most elusive. Yes, we look at production over the course of a career, and a lot of that has to do with getting into major championships, because if you're productive, you're going to vault yourself into certain thresholds with respect to the world rankings that's going to get you into the U.S. Open, into the Masters tournament, into the Open Championship, and of course, into the PGA Championship. And if you achieve certain benchmarks based on production, it's also going to get you into Signature Series events. It's also going to get you into the Tour Championship, which is the last benchmark of achievement. That 30 means so much because it then sets up the following year. But the one benchmark, which is the separator between production and immortality, it's winning. It's winning. That's what it is. Because Jack Nicklaus, 73 wins in his career. He also had 58 seconds. He had 286 top 10s in 582 career starts. And you're going, wait a second. Oh, 286, 582, that's like half. Yeah, it is. It kind of is, because he actually had more than 20 starts after the age of 60, which counted toward his total number of starts. Same thing with Tiger. Tiger has finished second 31 times on the PGA Tour. He has 199 top 10s in his career. But those numbers are not mentioned when they are entered into the World Golf Hall of Fame. And Justin Thomas is headed in that direction. In addition to those 2 major titles, he also has a Players' Championship. He has a FedEx Cup title. He has bold type. When you turn over that baseball card and you look at the baseball card of Roberto Clemente, or whether it be Alex Rodriguez, who's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame, there's a lot of bold type there. And you look at that and you go, that's the separator. Winning in golf is what separates. So for Justin Thomas to do what he's done over the last 3 years, and he was approaching 3 years. It was May of 2022 when Mito Pereira opened the door for him by inexplicably playing the final hole at Southern Hills in the manner in which he did. And if we want to look at major championship victories, and we want to look at all victories and how guys got those wins, there are, in those 73 that Jack was the recipient of and earned, there were more than a handful that were kicked to him. As a matter of fact, he will tell you in his 18 major championship victories, how many of those 18 were you at your absolute very best? He'll tell you less than half. Let the other guy make the mistake. And it wasn't so much that Andrew Novak made any mistakes. My God, this is the deep end of the pool for somebody who is ascending. And Andrew Novak seems to be the kind of guy who is not just having a good little run here. He's a great story by himself. And like I said, his production right now is being measured by a modest number of top 10s in his career because he's finally finding his footing. But somebody like Justin Thomas, 16-2 and a Players, is why he's going to be in the World Golf Hall of Fame. And it's also that hard work is never something that goes unrewarded. and for the second place in the American Express. And more recently, I know it smarted for him to have a 2-shot lead standing on the 16th tee at the Valspar just about a month ago. And he got clipped because he made a bogey on 16 and then backed it up with another one on 18. And Victor Hovland swooped in, and he took advantage of those little bobbles by Justin Thomas. Not yesterday, bogey-free. And this guy, who was 174th in strokes gained putting in 2024, after yesterday, you know where he is? 24th. Hard work, finding the answers that he used to have, which seem like in totality are returning. And I can tell you that Keegan Bradley is happy to see it. Not that Justin Thomas, I don't think, needed to win a golf tournament to be on the United States Ryder Cup team. Oh, but he'll be there, and he will be the irritant that he is. And I mean that in the most affectionate way. And he sets himself up coming to Quail Hollow in just a couple of weeks, where he won his first major championship. Could he win a PGA for the third time? You better believe he can. And that putt he rolled in that playoff was the kind of thing he hadn't done in his career. It's a big win, and it's a big return to the winner's circle for one of the best players of his generation. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, I mentioned Tom Pashley, the president of Pinehurst. They're always thinking, what must we do to make this place better? I have a feeling what you're going to hear from him is just that. As we get started on a Monday, Rob Collins a little bit later on, a guy who is building amazing golf courses, including one in Homer, Nebraska. The story of that tonight on Golf Channel, the backstory right here at the bottom of the hour. It is a Monday. It is 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel, also on Channel 92 on Sirius XM, on PGA Tour Radio. We're back with Tom Pashley right after this. Back in on this Monday on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, also on Channel 92 on Sirius XM, that is PGA Tour Radio. And this segment very proudly brought to you by Pinehurst Resort. We're awfully proud of our association with the Cradle of American Golf, and appropriately, the man who leads that great team and the vision of the Cradle of American Golf, Tom Pashley, the president, joins me now. My friend, I know the sun is coming up in the Sandhills of North Carolina. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Gary. Doing great. You know, it's, as we like to say, it's always a beautiful day in Pinehurst, but today's also a very exciting day in Pinehurst.
I know it is. Well, why don't you share with everybody this great news? I mention all the time, you guys embody that success is always under construction. So what is the news this morning?
Yeah, well, we were very fortunate. We opened Pinehurst number 10 last April, right before we hosted the U.S. Open. And number 10 sits in an area that we call the Pinehurst Sand Mines. And there's a lot of land down there, 900 acres total. And so we're going to kind of round out our golf course offerings there by, we're announcing Pinehurst number 11 is going to begin construction this fall. And Bill Coore and Ben Crenshaw are going to be our architects to make that dream come to reality.
You know, Tom, the logo you have there is so clever. It's so neat because it represents that piece of land. And before we talk about number 11 in detail, I want to go back, because when you say Bill Coore and Ben Crenshaw, they have a very personal relationship already with Pinehurst. What they did to embark upon the restoration of Pinehurst number 2 was right before you took the helm, but you know what they did. You know how much temerity it took, not only by the resort, but also by those 2 men, to do what they did, to bring it back to their origins. What did you learn about Bill and Ben during that process?
They were the perfect combination, because Bill went to Wake Forest University and spent a lot of time in Pinehurst. He's a North Carolinian. He spent a lot of time in Pinehurst during his youth, so he knew what the aesthetics of Pinehurst number 2 were. Obviously, Ben is a great historian and a great champion golfer, and so Ben knew the playability of Pinehurst number 2. So they brought, you know, the history and the architecture and push it all together and did a wonderful job. It was, like you said, we were nervous about taking Pinehurst number 2 back because it had hosted U.S. Opens, but they did such a wonderful job. And really that restoration of Pinehurst number 2 is what's been emboldening us to continue moving forward. And we kind of like to say we look backwards as we walk forwards.
Tom, share with people who have not had the chance yet to play number 10, which was voted the best new public golf course in America in 2024. Tom Doak and his great team that presented that now to the world of golf. It's been so well received. And literally, not just nearby, literally butting up against it will be Pinehurst number 11. Tell people about number 11 and why it will be different to the degree that it will be from its next door neighbor.
Yeah, and I really do think you'll have two golf courses that couldn't be any more different than each other, and that's what's going to make it so fun. Golfers are looking for variety when they take their golf trips, and so the neat thing about this land and why we call it Pinehurst Sand Mines is it was an old sand mining operation, and there were kind of two distinct sand mines. One was on the western side of the property, and that's where number 10 sits. And really, that only has one or two holes where you realize something happened on this site. But on the east side, where Coore and Crenshaw are going to work with number 11, there's much more of the land that was impacted by the sand mining operation. So you have these really cool landforms where I think 9 holes of the Coore Crenshaw routing will traverse some of these old sand mining operations. And, while the land was kind of moved by the sand mining operation, nature claimed it back, and it's been sitting for decades untouched. And so it's a little bit man-made, but it's also been reclaimed by nature. It's a much more intimate routing. I think the word charm comes into play when you're on the Coore Crenshaw routing. Doak's number 10 is big and wide and has a lot of elevation change, while the Coore Crenshaw routing is tighter. It goes up and over some of these really neat ridges and landforms. Again, I don't think you could have two dissimilar golf courses so close to each other.
We're lucky enough to have some thoughts from Bill Coore. Let's share this with everybody, and then we'll come back and kind of talk more about why 10 and 11, particularly together, means so much to the future of Pinehurst. Here's a little sampling of the thoughts of Bill Coore on what they're getting ready to embark on.
It was a site that was mined many years ago, decades and decades ago, for sand and gravel and that sort of thing. And in the process, you can see there were giant piles. This is a lot of what they call overburden, where they would strip this sand and actually some pretty good material off to get to other types of sand and or gravel that they were looking for. And this is the leftover from all that mining operation from the 1930s, I think. I can't remember exactly how long it went, but the spoil piles were here. Mother Nature provided the trees. I mean, if you look, it's incredible. There's some sites you see with a lot of dunes. Okay, that's beautiful. Maybe there's an ocean there. There's sites that you see with trees. It's not too often that you get the combination almost. These aren't natural dunes, but yet the landforms, the ridges, the piles, and then the really interesting trees. I mean, some of them are behind you here, but huge trees that have grown up through the ensuing decades since it was a mining site. And you put those together, and it creates a site that's extraordinarily interesting for golf. This is something new. It's a new course, but the site itself is so interesting, so quirky, I don't think, and I've told a number of people this, that I don't think I have ever seen two more physically different sites that are contiguous, that literally touch each other, than the site for number 10 and number 11. They're just monumentally different in terms of their characteristics.
And Tom, those words from Bill Coore are important to you because you envision 10 and 11 potentially being its own experience. Kind of share with people what you're thinking about. It's down the road from the resort, the Carolina Hotel, that people could come there, and 10 and 11 can be their own experience. And I recently was able to see how far along you already are with the clubhouse, with the restaurant, and how things are so close to being real there, starting at number 10 and soon enough on number 11. The coupling of these two golf courses is part of the plan, is it not?
It absolutely is. We kind of envision it to be a destination within a destination. People come to Pinehurst and they stay at the Carolina Hotel or the Holly or the Manor. But I envision a time when people will be able to come and they'll just stay at the sand mines. We'll have a lodge there, a small lodge. We'll have golf cabins there. And so if all you want to do is come and stay in nature and never venture out to the main Pinehurst Resort, you can do that. And you'll have this immersive golf experience that will include an amazing pro shop and a great restaurant in our grill there. Eventually, we envision building out a lake lodge. There's a beautiful 30-acre lake that is a blackwater lake that we're going to have a lodge overlook. So, I think really you now have the best of both worlds. We now can offer the best of the modern golf architects with Gil Hance, Tom Doak, and Coore Crenshaw. And then you can also come and play the cradle and play Donald Ross's masterpiece, Pinehurst No. 2. So we view it as kind of a best of both worlds scenario.
Tom, I was lucky enough, this. Bob Farron walked me around number 10 about halfway through the process with Eric Huster. And then on my own, I went over to where number 11 will be on my own last fall on a Sunday afternoon and just walked for 3 hours and found certain stakes of what I think will be, whether it's green sites. And it's haunting. The land itself, it's talking to you, telling you, you know what? This is going to be something very different from its next door neighbor. When you walk land with people like Bill Coore and Ben Crenshaw and Tom Doak, what do you learn about their vision?
It's you can walk the land and you see certain things, and then when you go out there with one of these legendary golf architects, it's interesting. They seem to always be looking for a green site, and they start with a natural, what feels like either the sheep put it there if it was in Scotland or Ireland, or here it was just a natural landform that would be an amazing green site. And they go around and find the different green sites, and then they spend their time figuring out how to route a golf course or a hole to get you there, and how do you connect that to the next one. So I really never knew how focused they were on finding incredible green sites. And that's mostly what they're looking at. And I'm glad you mentioned that haunting. I mean, one of the neat things about this land is even though it's only 4 miles away from our main campus, it feels very isolated and very quiet. And so I can see why when you were walking and how haunting it feels, because you feel like you're out there alone.
Tom, last thing for now, people who are hearing this going, okay, so when? Do you have a general timeline of what the ambition is for completion of Pinehurst number 11?
Yeah, we intend to have this golf course ready no later than the fall of 2027. So we'll start this fall. It'll be about a 2-year process, Gary. And as you mentioned, the pro shop and the grill will already be finished. Those will finish later this year. We'll begin some lodging out there. So really, we hope to have the entire Pinehurst Sand Mines experience ready when this course opens in the fall of 27. And knowing that we always have a U.S. Open every 5 or 6 years, the next Open comes in 29. So that helps us kind of line up our different priorities.
I want to go back to one last thing you said a moment ago about the honor roll of the people who, first of all, Donald Ross's life work, obviously, at Pinehurst. But beyond that, I know it was very important for you to have representation of the greatest architects and golf course designers of this particular generation. You mentioned Fazio, and obviously Gil Hance, and Tom Doak now, and to now have Coore Crenshaw and their original work. I know for everybody there, you have to be awfully proud to know what the lineup is going to be in 2027.
Yeah, Gary, I think that's one of the neat things that we offer is you get this walk through golf architecture's evolution. There really are 6 different eras of golf represented at Pinehurst. And while Bill and Ben have been known for the restoration of Pinehurst number 2, we didn't have one of their original designs and felt that was super important. Our owner, the Dahmen family, and Bob Dahmen in particular, wanted to have a Coore Crenshaw course at Pinehurst forever. And so that's why we're making this move, and we couldn't be more excited.
I know you are. Thanks so much for taking the time. Great news not only for Pinehurst, great news for people who love to come to the cradle of American golf. Thanks so much.
Hope to see you soon, Gary. Thank you.
You bet. Tom Pashley, the president of Pinehurst. It is Pinehurst number 11, 10-11. I call that blackjack. We come back. Rob Collins is going to join us. His thoughts on a documentary of one of his works tonight in Homer, Nebraska. It's the bottom of the hour on this Monday edition of 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel and also Channel 92 on Sirius XM. We're back right after this. Welcome back in. It's the bottom of the hour on this Monday on 5 Clubs Golf Channel, also on PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92. And this segment is brought to you by Peter Millar. When it comes to refining performance and style, when it comes to anything you need to wear, whether it's going to meetings, going to ball games, playing golf, they have you covered. Nobody can provide better apparel than Peter Millar. All right, tonight on Golf Channel at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central is going to be the story of a bold idea, an idea that many people thought there's no way this could happen. But the honest truth is that in the state of Nebraska, if you have a dream, and I think back over 3 decades ago when somebody else had one in the western part of the state, and I think it changed the industry of golf forever. Well, another dream more recently became a reality with Landman. Landman in Danish means farmer, and that's a big part of the story. Here is a little sampling of what you're going to see tonight, anything but little, on Golf Channel this evening.
This is something I didn't think would ever happen. I remember that night we signed that contract. I couldn't believe that we were really going to build a golf course.
With a project of this scale, we were all kind of jumping off a cliff to some extent. It was just an unbelievable opportunity. We knew we had to deliver, and if we did, it would change our lives.
We have an 18-hole golf course, but it's technically a 36-hole acreage. You can fly drones, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't do justice. You just have to see it.
You can see all the way to downtown Sioux City and South Dakota, actually. And it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
I think a lot of people thought he was crazy, but I know him well enough to know he wasn't. His mom's father taught him golf, and his dad's father taught him how to move dirt, and these things combined into Landman.
It's pretty crazy where we started and where we are now. That's pretty much all I think about.
With that, we bring in Rob Collins from King Collins, the design firm that had the boldness to pull this off. And appropriately, Rob, it is home base, it's Homer. You guys hit a grand slam by everybody's measurement of doing this. Good morning. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great. It's a little dusty in here watching that preview with Will and them. It's going to be special tonight. I can't wait to watch it. I
know it is. Let me take you back to the first time you saw it. I believe it was May of 2019, and you guys went out there and you looked at, from what I understand, a few other sites, but somebody kept saying something about a site up top. Tell us about when you finally saw the site up top.
Well, I've got my game-worn up-top hat on right now, and Will said, hey, there's this site up top on top of the bluffs. You know, I'd like for you guys to go see it. And we just kind of kept saying, take us up top, take us up top. And when we got up there, mine and Tad's eyes popped out of our head. We just couldn't believe it. And let us build a golf course here? He said, absolutely. And Will kind of kept his cards close. He didn't really reveal to us that was his chosen site. We looked at 2 other sites, and I think when he saw our reaction and our genuine excitement and our belief that we could pull off a big job like that, I think that was a big deal for him and his family.
You know, Rob, I know that you and Tad, when you see things, you think, you know, what's possible, not what's impossible. But take people through the challenges, not only of the tilt and roll of the land, which was significant, but also the soil itself, because reading about it, it's different. So take everybody through not only the challenges of what you saw as far as the land itself, but the soil itself.
So the beautiful thing about Landman is that from afar, it looks like a golf course, and you have this massive tapestry upon which you can tie out your contours and hide your fill, which is important. But we had to make massive cuts and fills to make it work, to have gentle, walkable, and playable grades. For instance, at the first tee, we probably cut 20 or 30 feet out of the landing area and then filled the valley, 30 or 40 feet. So you're looking at possibly a 70 to 80 foot grade differential just on that hole alone. And there were some other holes that sat in there and didn't require much, but our goal was to move that dirt and then blend it back into the natural land in such a way that once it was complete and grown in, that it would look like it had been there for a long time. And I credit our team with doing an amazing job. We were fortunate to work with some really talented people who helped execute the vision. And other than that, I mean, the soil was actually, this low soil, which only exists in a couple places in the world. And one good thing about it is that like when Jeff Bradley would cut in the bunker edges, the soil would stay in place. And that was terrific. However, there was quite a bit of erosion after big rains on those sloping fairways. And Will and his family made an important decision to go ahead and sod the entire golf course, which really helped hold it in place. And I think that helped them get open when they did. That was a great decision by Will.
Rob, I don't know how much time you normally, depending on the site, budget for the routing of the golf course. My understanding is that originally you kind of budgeted, I don't know if it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 days, and you guys wound up routing the golf course in a day. Why did your vision of what it become so crystal clear so quickly?
It was a magical day that Tad and I had out there. It's just something I'll never forget. Will kind of turned us loose. We knew where we were going to start and finish. So that was a huge deal, not having to go wander around in this gigantic prairie. We knew where that start and finish was, and we started going. We had a rangefinder. I shot the first greens about 575 yards away. Said, that's a perfect par 5. Let's go. Let's turn right over this hill. Neat little green site down there, par 4. Turn to our left. There's a big open valley. It just kept progressing like this. It was total magic. We'd had 7-8 holes laid out, and we called Will and said, hey, can you get us some stakes? We've got 7-8 holes laid out. And this was about an hour and a half later. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's unbelievable. And so we just kind of motored around it, and we knew that this was the perfect site for us to do something that we had really wanted to do for a while, which was build a Sitwell Park green, which is inspired by the famous Alistair McKenzie green. And we saw a perfect place way off in the distance for it, and we kind of kept working the routing back to that one spot, and we were real proud of ourselves, and we got done with it and added it up, and it turns out we had 16 holes. And so we called Will and said, hey, Will, do you own that bean field over there? And he said, yeah, that's ours. I said, can we put a couple golf holes over there? He said, oh yeah, that's fine. Real understated. And so that's 9 and 10 that became what's known as Cornfield Corner, and that 16 plus 2 equals 18. And we were off.
Will Anderson, who you're referencing here, if you watch the documentary tonight, 7:30 Eastern to 6:30 Central on Golf Channel, you're going to hear his heart and soul talking to you about this. How important is it to you guys that this land, if you think about the Anderson family, they had farmed the prairies of Nebraska for almost 100 years, but that this parcel of land, which they had not farmed, what do we do with this? And Will appealed to his family and said, how about a golf course? And for it to become what it is, and that people from far and wide, but not to mention people from right there In 50 minutes, you sold out the tee sheet in 2025. How much does that mean to you guys that this place has the feelings that it's already conjured in so many people?
It's hard to even express it into words. I've just become so close to the Andersons. Will and his mom and dad are just terrific people, and that they're in possession of this one-off golf course that is truly a one of one, and we developed a great bond with them throughout the whole process, and it's just a thrill beyond words to know that it's become what it's become, and Tad and I just couldn't be happier about that.
Rob, let me ask you something in a bigger picture. You and I have talked about Sweetens Cove, and look, you put your life, your career in terms of money, and is this going to be the end of the line? Is this going to be the beginning? Who knows? And it was the beginning of something incredibly special. Why do you think that this is happening in golf, that these places, that if they have a soul to them, in addition to having redeemable design principles and good holes and fun holes, that people will come from all corners to come play these places?
I think Mike Kaiser proved that people will pursue quality golf no matter where it is. And you mentioned the word soul. I think that's kind of the extra dimension that Sweetens and Landman have, and a lot of the other successful modern golf courses. There's a spirit to them, and it's almost a spiritual experience for some people. And when you add that up, people will travel far and wide to search out something that's compelling and authentic, because our world is filled with inauthenticity. So when you find something that is authentic, you're going to be attracted to it. And golf is having a little moment right now, which is great, and we hope it can keep going.
How about the state of Nebraska? I was supposed to come to Homer a couple years ago and wound up hitting a mule deer on Highway 97 and tore up the right side of my car. So trying to get from Valentine to Homer wasn't going to happen. But you said something that is absolutely true as it pertains to me. When I go there, every time I go there, it feels spiritual. I feel like I'm not running away from something. I'm running towards something, but there's no humanity in sight. And I think that state, Rob, is having their own moment, whether it be what Sandhills did even before Bandon Dunes, by the idea that, you know what, if it's good enough, people will make a point of coming here. And now that state, I think it's kind of golf's holy land. What about the state of Nebraska as a whole?
Oh, it's incredible. Obviously, Sandhills is the leader out there, breaking ground 30 years ago. And it's amazing what all has happened since then. And Nebraska, I think from afar, especially for a kid from Tennessee, you just think of it as being a flat kind of cornfield, but it's anything but that. I mean, the long Nebraska summer days are just the best, and the rolling terrain and the variety of terrain out there is as much as any state in the country, which you might not expect if you're not from that area. And there is a lot of great golfing terrain out there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 20, 30 years with respect to golf in the state of Nebraska. But as Ron Whitten said, after he came out to Landman, he had been to Cap Rock and he had been to Lost Rail and then toured Landman. He said Landman was suddenly the hotbed of architecture in America. And, I thought that was really cool for Ron, because I believe he's from Nebraska, and it, meant a lot to him and people from the Midwest to see that beautiful state put on display.
Last thing you said as we came out of the little trailer, God, this is emotional. For all of you, I don't know if you're going to have a collective text thread tonight, everybody, because your team, like you said, there's a lot of people that made this happen. This is not some intimate little group. The construction of a golf course of this scale, as dramatic as the site is, are all you guys going to be missing things because you're going to be texting each other as you watch this?
We're definitely going to have to DVR it. I'm glad we're not back in the days of the VCR. We'll be watching this one again, but there will be a lot of texts going back and forth for sure. There's a lot of people who deserve to be very proud of their input on this. And like any good golf course, it's not one or two people. You know, it wasn't Tad and me. It was a collection of incredibly talented people who put their hands on this. And for that, we're very, very grateful.
Well, you got a lot going on. I know 21 Golf Club down the road from us here in Charlotte. Bounty Club as well. I know you're busy in a good way, but tonight, settle in, enjoy this, because this was a labor of love to the Anderson family, to everybody involved, to make this a realization. And like I said, less than an hour, the tee sheet in 2025 was gobbled up, which is amazing to think about. Thank you for taking the time this morning, my friend. I appreciate it.
Great to be on. Hope to see you soon. Thanks, Gary.
You bet. Rob Collins, again, King Collins, and what those guys are doing. It's amazing work. Tonight, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. Homer, Nebraska, the home of Landman, and as I said, that is Danish for farmer appropriately. We come back. More to do here on this Monday edition of Five Clubs. Back right after this. Back in on this Monday on Five Clubs. Great to have you with us. This segment is brought to you by Golf Pride. When it comes to grips, there is no grip company that is trusted by more players. If you look at all the great players, just watch any event on the PGA Tour, they're all playing Golf Pride, and that includes you too. That's the thing, is that whether it's the Align Max for the 18 handicap or the +8, it is Golf Pride when it comes to grips globally. You know, this week, if you look at the tapestry of winners, whether it's Neil Shipley, who won on the Korn Ferry Tour. Neil Shipley had his own moment. It was funny to hear Jim Nantz mention that Neil Shipley texted him this year, it was as they were leading into the Masters, saying, you know what, maybe you should give some advice to whoever the low amateur is about not doing a side eye, because that became quite the meme or the gif or the gif or whatever you want to call it from last year. But Neil Shipley, not only does he got game, he's got personality, and he won on the 5th playoff hole on the Korn Ferry Tour. Now, he has a rash of missed cuts so far this season, but you know what? You couple that with a couple of wins, you're earmarked to graduate to the PGA Tour. So he wins on the 5th playoff hole, and smartly the Korn Ferry Tour. And I hope, and this is a conversation for a longer conversation as we look at what the future of professional golf in terms of scheduling looks like. I think all these tours should mix it up so that every one of them, for the most part, gets out of the way of the PGA Tour on Championship Sundays. Not every week, but a little bit more. And that was a Saturday finish, so he wins on the 5th playoff hole. Meanwhile, because it was a signature series event, you also had a opposite field event in Punta Cana. Joel Dahmen had a chance to win for the second time, and the second time at Punta Cana. But he bogeyed the last 3 holes, and that opened the door for Garrick Higgo. And I posed this question last night to Justin Ray, and if Justin Ray doesn't know the answer, nobody does. I don't have it yet. He said, that's a good question. I'm going to have to do some digging. Don't know if he went to bed or if he's still digging or not. But I asked the question of him, has anybody won their first 2 events on the PGA Tour by somebody else, and winning by 1, by somebody else bogeying the last 3 holes? Because if you remember, the Palmetto Championship, which was played at Congaree, which was in lieu of the RBC Canadian Open during the COVID year of 2021, Chesson Hadley bogeyed 16, 17, and 18, opened the door for Garrick Higgo, who walked right through it and won for the first time. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. Joel Dahmen, if you have not heard his post-round interview, watch it. It was 90 seconds of being real and talking about how, gosh, I'm going to wake up from this and try to figure out how it is that I didn't win it. That was Facing the Music. I don't know Joel Dahmen. I've been around him a little bit in just media sessions. He came off incredibly, not only human, but very real, and an incredibly stand-up guy, and he's having a very good season. So let me digress from that to just mention some sad news from the world of golf over the weekend. When you think of amateur careers, there are very few that have played the game at the amateur level at a higher level than Jay Sigel did. Jay Sigel died this past weekend at the age of 81. And this is somebody who was going to embark on having a professional career, but an injury sent him in a different direction, but a direction that produced arguably the greatest amateur career post-World War II, and it may never be matched. A two-time U.S. amateur champion. He won those titles at age 38 and 39, a 9-time Walker Cup member. He was a low amateur not only at the Masters 3 times, he was the low amateur at the U.S. Open and the Open Championship, and most importantly, Jay Sigel was a credit to the game of golf, as evidenced by him being the recipient of the Bob Jones Award in 1984, the year after he won his second U.S. Amateur. The game of golf was better because of the presence of Jay Sigel. Condolences to the entire Sigel family. He was one of the great players the game has known. For all of us here on 5 Clubs, we hope you have a wonderful Monday. We're back here tomorrow with another 5 Clubs edition at 8 a.m. Eastern. Have a great day.